Welcome to Common Sense. I'm Ed.
And I'm John. How you doing, Ed?
I'm good, John. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. Back in the saddle, trying to get 2019 going here. So
We're 2 weeks into the year. We're 1/25th of the way through the year before we know it's going to be 10%. And I mean, the one good thing is I look out the window and I see we actually have a couple more minutes of daylight every day. So we've kind of gone from whatever it is, like 4.5 hours, it feels like, to maybe we'll be at 5 hours of daylight soon.
and maybe a quarter of a degree warmer, huh?
Well, can't complain. The weather, it's been an easy winter thus far in that regard.
Yeah. Well, today we're going to do some exploring kind of off the beaten path of what we normally talk about in terms of revenue growth. And if you ask most sales and marketing people, they talk about this kind of a straight line between products and customers. And more, that's about digital marketing, lead generation, lead management, sales, and customer service, all kind of backed by marketing and marketing automation and CRM. And these are all processes, and they involve methodologies like inbound marketing and sales development and challenger sale, just to name a few. And most of these things nowadays are being executed in-house with some assistance from agencies, especially when it comes to specialties like SEO and digital advertising and website development. But this is far from the whole world of revenue generation, and that's what I'd like to ask your first question about.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, it's easy in many cases if every what's the expression? If every problem is a nail, then your solution is a hammer every time. And for many groups, just kind of the standard inbound playbook becomes the hammer. They think every problem is that nail that they can hammer with inbound marketing. The problem is that buyer expectations and buyer behaviors and technology are all evolving. And so what was a splendid solution 4 or 5 years ago, kind of in the abstract, sits or overlays very differently on the market environment today. And it requires continuously evolving not only the way you do your optimization, moving from simple keywords to content pillars, but the tools you're using and the approaches. And it's really a much more of a multivariate environment, which on the one hand, where everyone says everything needs to go to 3 bullet points and you can't be complex and you got to simplify it and all that, it's a difficult message, but it's also reality. And so to ignore it, I think, doesn't do anybody any favors. Mm-hmm. Complex sales where you got buying teams, it's hard to figure out who the people are. It's hard to get to the right people and to get to all of them, to have their attention, get them to tell you the truth. And we've talked many times about why the status quo keeps winning deals and how hard it is to build those trusted relationships. Just getting in the door for the first conversation. The companies have teams of BDRs that hammer on it, just trying to get the stick their toe in the door before it gets slammed so they can begin the conversation, hope to hand something off to inside sales, and hopefully then hand it off to field sales without spending exorbitant amounts on paid media, just trying to get there. Mm-hmm. So, I think that what you see as a result is companies experimenting, and they're trying other kinds of approaches, various ways to get to different points along that revenue generation continuum. Some are fancy new names for old spins on things. I mean, ABM may be a new way of talking about account management or territory management, but there's some new technology to it, and you're very well versed in all the ins and outs. What would you say as you look at this? What are some of the key novel ideas that jump out at you these days?
Well, like you said, some of these are what's old is new again. And it's really just it's about imagination. It's about trying different things because
magazines are coming back.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so much competition for the digital second that you got to try some different things, and a lot of people are going back to the more human to human concepts. So account-based marketing, which is now sort of being called account-based everything, which is probably what it should have been called in the first place, or maybe account-based strategy, it's really the extension of ABM to all customer-facing operations. And the idea really, again, we've talked about this before, but the idea is really just picking a few companies that you really want to work with because they fit your customer profile. They have cultures that are similar to yours, or purposes, or whatever your interest is. And you treat them like business partners, instead of like clients or like targets. So the whole idea of rolling in customer experience into the sales and marketing process and tightening them up together is really the thing these days. And ABM is targeting it. It's really focusing down on a few people that, like you mentioned, on the sales or the buying team, and people that support them, and communicating directly with them, not just sort of throwing out advertising and hoping something catches.
Right.
So, you mentioned software, and there is some specific software like Engagio or Terminus to help with this process. But the bottom line is, statistics show that companies that are using ABE or ABM close more than 20% more deals, and the average deal size is well over twice what they're seeing with conventional sales and marketing strategies. So it's working. It may not be, again, a new thing. It's sort of a retooling of an old thing, but it seems to be working. So what's another example?
Well, it's interesting to look at these. We could look at that ABM example, and we could debate whether that's correlation or causation. They're selling more.
Mm-hmm.
Is it because they're doing ABM, or is it because companies that think more rigorously and proactively and creatively about how to approach a market are embracing new tools like ABM? And who knows what it is, but I think it's clear that trying things is important. And another thing that we see some people trying is influencer marketing.
Right.
So on the one hand, like what you said, it's not so new. I mean, people have been talking about this for a long time, but it's a little bit newer that it's something that people are talking about in the context of B2B. It's not just for B2C, selling soda and cosmetics and stuff like that. There's a whole kind of premise of organic SEO and paid ads about driving visitors to your site or to your content. And really, influencer marketing is essentially the same. It's about trying to co-opt somebody else's audience as a way of attracting more attention, more visitors, more opportunities for you. So influencers can range from outright celebrities in some cases, but infrequently in B2B, through subject matter experts and deep dive experts in certain areas, keynote speakers and bloggers. There's some bloggers with great reach and a lot of authority, industry insiders. What you want them to do is to share your stories and introduce you or introduce others to your ideas and to your brand. It's kind of PR in a sense. I mean, they're not necessarily targeting journalists, although if journalists were to pick up on it through these influencers, in many cases you wouldn't object. But it's really about trying to get them to share some of your content that may influence prospects. And there's an implicit imprimatur of authority that comes by virtue of the fact that this influencer is sharing your information. So in some cases, it's even just more about credibility than it is about the products or services up front. And then that kind of gradually evolves. You mentioned a great stat from social media today that 94% of marketers who use influencer marketing find it an effective practice, and that influencer marketing can generate up to 11 times the ROI of traditional advertising. No doubt. I mean, if you've got somebody that's a noted expert and they're saying, hey, this is important, read this, pay attention to it, that's incredibly valuable. On the other hand, it is difficult and it's expensive. And depending on how well known your desired influencers are, it can be even harder to get them on board. There's technology, like each of these things we talk about, there's a tech piece to it. You can use BuzzSumo, you can use Tracker to help you find the right influencers and try to contact them. And it's not all the Kardashian, kind of stuff that you hear about where people are paid outrageous amounts of money to be shown using a product on Instagram. It can be much more about taking the time, gradually sharing their information. Number one, if they're a thought leader in your industry, you ought to be reading what they're saying and digesting it yourself, sharing it on social media. They'll become acquainted with you because they see you as an active engager with them, sharing their content. And then you can kind of begin the conversation with them that may eventually lead to them being inclined to share some of your stuff. So influencer marketing, old, but also kind of new, particularly in the B2B space. What else is on your list?
Well, it's very similar, but I like co-branded marketing or co-marketing, which is, again, it's a lot like influencer marketing. You're kind of getting together with another company to go to market, somebody that has a similar product, maybe not a competitor, but something that's complementary, or you share, a purpose, or you share beliefs, or you share a marketplace. And it just makes more sense to kind of go to market together than it does separately. And you can blend each other's marketing budgets. You can come up with an interesting strategy that kind of makes 1 + 1 = 3. There's a lot of examples out there, and especially in B2C, but I think you're starting to see it more in B2B. Some examples we've seen in our own space are MarTech software companies getting together with marketing agencies to share stories. Or you could think about, let's say there's, in the green space, you've got a company that sells wind turbine parts getting together with a company that builds and supports wind farms, or maybe a government agency even, so all kinds of ideas are being put together to do this co-marketing idea. And even personally, we know that our friends at DataBox and HubSpot do this really well. They put together blog posts sort of talking about a common topic that software users of different kinds are having. And those things tend to drive a lot more traffic to your blog and to your website than just something you publish yourself. So it makes a lot of sense. So I think you're going to see that a lot more. What about on the data side? What's happening over there?
Yeah, I love that. That's essentially a guild model that you're describing. I mean, it'd be really cool to see a bunch of companies get together and say, we're going to create a publishing site related to the stuff that's important to all our buyers. Rather than have a publisher do it, have them own the content. It's kind of a neat idea. But data, data, of course, is big. Intent data is becoming, it's probably going to be the next buzzword. There was ABM, there's conversational marketing. I think intent data is quickly reaching that kind of fever pitch. I think that I know it primarily from the sales fracking data, very specific angle of the data that I work with, but kind of backing up and thinking about it holistically. What is it? What does it do? Well, it answers the question that salespeople have had for millennia. Who is actively buying? How many salespeople have you had tell you, I win more than my fair share of the deals. If I'm sitting at the table, that's all I need to be, is sitting at the table and I'll win them. Well, statistically, only 3% of the potential buyers for any given product or service are in the market at any given time. And you don't know who they are. And so then you do inbound. It's a great strategy, but if you do the math, if you work hard to get ranked 1, 2, or 3, you only have a 30% click-through rate if you're good. You only have a 3 to 5% conversion rate if you're good, which means only 1.5% of the people searching that term become leads, and only a part of the 3% in the market are searching that term. So it's a tiny percentage of the market. How do you know who's active, who's thinking about it? So intent data is designed to tell you who's taking action online with competitor sites and news sites, researching the products you sell, the services you sell, looking for solutions to problems or outcomes that you provide, and then filters it according to job title, geography, company size, industry, the kinds of things to make sure you're getting the leads that are important for you. So imagine knowing who was considering a purchase and how intense their search was, where they are in their buying journey, what competitors they're considering, what problem they're trying to solve, and all that stuff. And with that information, and not just anonymous, well, somebody at this company of 10,000 people is thinking about it, but this person in this role at this company is taking this action. You can see the context. With that, you've got the ability to hand it off to sales, to segment it for different marketing approaches, to put it into an ABM playbook, to do all kinds of really cool stuff with it. There's a lot of use cases, not only the prospecting side from kind of awareness through bottom of the funnel, but for customers too. What if you could tell your customer service people when a current customer is engaging with a competitor? There's important information there. Maybe the competitor just has some great insights that they want, but maybe there's something else going on. And in any case, your people ought to be in touch. They ought to be seeing what's of interest to customers, and they ought to be engaging with anybody to make sure that you're reducing churn. So you can integrate the data with CRM and marketing automation and ABM tools and conversational marketing software, and you can create a much richer experience in a number of ways for people that are actively searching. And it's kind of like, I call it like octane booster, for what you're doing already. So ABM, kind of as a final note, ABM, which you mentioned earlier, or account-based everything, is a place that we see a lot of energy for intent data directed, because the flaw of most ABM is just anonymous. Okay, we know that company's a target. We know somebody from that company with reverse IP lookup did something, but who? And are they the right buyers? And who else is involved in the deal? And how do we work it all? So that's my take on intent data. What else is on your list?
Well, that's four of them. I think the most interesting ones, I think we would agree they're the ones that probably can get you the most benefit right now outside of, the normal inbound approaches. But there's others that are mostly kind of related to technology, like AI and the AI supported software that now helps you do, among other things, one of the biggest problems companies have is cleaning up and enhancing their customer database.
Right.
Because they're old, they're out of date, the email addresses are wrong, there's a lot of different things. People nowadays move from job to job a lot. So just getting that right could be a big win. And there's some really nice software that, gets around the problem of downloading multiple spreadsheets and spending your weekends cleaning those up and importing them back in and all that good stuff.
Right.
The next one on my sort of honorable mention list are all the SaaS applications that are out there for novices to build and manage digital ad campaigns. I mean, I myself consider myself a novice when it comes to that, and it's actually really easy to put together campaigns across social media and other paid media platforms now. You still have to have the right strategy, and you have to understand kind of how those marketplaces work. But, the software is certainly on your side. And then for sales reps who are out in the field, we talk about this all the time, having access to those accurate databases and buyer intent data and things like that. Imagine if you're, going from appointment to appointment and you've got all this information at your fingertips on your smartphone, and that's readily available now, not to mention all the reporting that goes with that and really kind of helps your company keep track and do, forecasting accurately and all kinds of things that, really do help revenue growth. Then a little more specifically, there's email software that solves a major problem, and that is connecting people to people through email and getting opens and clicks. And there's actually software out there that optimizes when and where and how often to send emails. So that's kind of another AI application that helps you, drive more success with engagement. And then, we've talked about conversational marketing. That's another one. All the chat apps and bots and so on that really enable conversations to happen across all channels these days. And people are really using those successfully now to drive both sales and improve customer experience. So that's just a few more, but I think you're going to see a lot more of those over the next few months and years as things are developing so fast.
So you're going to do more than just write a blog now?
Yeah, I'm thinking about not blogging anymore and just talking directly to people via all this technology. So,
right.
Anyway, that's all we have time to dive into today, but we do hope you'll stay tuned and tune into our Common Sense podcast. You can find that at riptidepress.com. So for now, I'm John.
And I'm Ed. And if you enjoy hearing these kinds of ideas, we pull different strings on, the fabric of revenue growth. Keep in mind not only these Common Sense revenue growth videos, but also the book that's available on Amazon, or you can find it by going to the URL commonsenserevenuegrowth.com as well. Thanks for joining us.